Hey, ladies, welcome to our Women and Blended Families live stream. This is the month of June, and we're talking all about how to support our men this month. But before we get started, I just want to say, tag your friends. If you have somebody who you know could benefit from this conversation, they can watch it now or they can watch it later. So if you go ahead and tag them, that gives them a chance even to watch the recorded version. So we'll give you a little bit of time to do that. I see some people are jumping on already, and we see your names. You can even throw up where you're from if you want to. It's always fun for us to see where people are joining us from. And also, we will have opportunity to answer questions, a few of them. So feel free to put your questions in the chat. If we don't get to them, we will answer all the questions later. So just know that we will do our very best and come back on and answer them just via typing in answers as we can for those that we don't get a chance to answer for our live stream. So thank you so much for joining us. I want to welcome our guest today. Brenda Stuart is going to be joining me, and Brenda has a wealth of information as a mom and a stepmom herself. She and her husband Gil have been married 21 years in their blended family, and they have 7 kids together and 10 grandkids. That is a lot. Brenda, welcome to our live stream. I'm so glad to have you with us.
Thank you for having me, Gayla. It's always nice to meet with a friend.
Yes, it is, and it's funner when we see each other in person, but we can do it
Yeah,
like this also, right? You know,
exactly.
now here's a little trivia about Brenda that I just have to tell our audience because it's impressive to me. Brenda is an ice skater. Yes, an ice skater. She did this professionally many years ago. And Brenda, I need lessons from you because when I'm on the ice, I just fall. I don't do so well.
But the main thing is that you get up, right? There's a
Yes.
special way to get up. It's okay.
But as we get older, it's harder to get up. So it might take a little longer. It might there might have to be assistance from my husband, but yes, I get up.
Love
So,
it. Love
yeah.
it.
Well, thank you for joining us. And as I mentioned, we are going to talk about how to support our men because that's an important role, whether they're a dad or they're a stepdad in our blended family. And Brenda, have you noticed that we don't really honor men the same way we honor women for Mother's Day? Father's Day, I mean, I don't know about you, but I haven't been thinking about it for 3 or 4 weeks. Like what happens with Mother's Day, the media starts projecting, okay, what are you doing
Mhm.
for mom? And even suggesting they have breakfast in bed or all kinds of things. So
Yeah.
I'm wondering, have you been thinking about that for Gil? You got a big celebration planned for him?
Well, we're actually taking a road trip, so I told him his present is gonna be gas
Oh,
and hotel.
I
No,
love
but
that.
I was just talking with a younger dad today. Well, he's probably in his 30s, and he's like, "I didn't even know it was Father's Day this week." And I'm like, "How could you not know?"
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Because
So,
the media isn't portraying it like they do for Mother's Day.
yeah.
That's part of it. So
Well, and part of it, I think I would put on some of the women too, because, well, I don't want to get ahead of our conversation, but so many times I think we have this unspoken expectation of our guys and that,
yes.
oh, they'll be fine. They don't need to be acknowledged and on and on. But
Right. Yeah,
yeah.
and that is part of our conversation that we'll just jump right into it because research tells us that men need respect and women need love. That's a big part of the couple relationship, and certainly there is truth to that, but I wanna add, men need much more than respect. I think we have to remember all of the things that also where we tell them how much they value, they value us, how much they mean to us. Also, encouragement in a blended family. The roles, particularly as a stepdad, is confusing and ambiguous at times. And so they need encouragement. They need accolades from us. So, what else would you add to that list that our guys need from us?
Yeah, I think you nailed it, Gayla. And I think a lot of it is once again that whole assumption that they know what our family needs, they know what I need, so everything is going to be okay. And sometimes they just, my question to newlyweds, to guys and gals, guys, like, how teachable are you?
Yes.
That
Oh,
goes for all,
wow.
right?
Mhm. Yeah,
So
I
maybe
love that, and I think what you're saying is, are you willing to listen to input that you get? And
yeah.
so I think that when we are talking to our guys and we want to give input, we always wanna start in love. I know especially if
Mhm.
we're addressing something perhaps with a stepchild or the way that they've handled a situation, we always want them to know, "I respect your opinion. I know you love my child, but here's some input that I want to give you." And I think that can go a long way into whether they really hear
Yeah.
what we're trying to say to them.
Yeah. And I think realizing too the baseline that um, they love, maybe not love, but like and care for our stepkids, right?
Yes.
And that they want the best for them. So let me help you with that relationship. Just as Gil knows I want the best for his kids. So I want to gather as much information, even now that they're adults.
Mhm.
How can I love them the way they need to be loved? And so Gil's my teacher to learn
Yes.
about his kids, especially
Yes.
early on, you
Right.
know.
I love that. Oh my goodness, that Gil is your teacher. That's a really good way to put it, Brenda.
Well, because he knows his kids better than I
Mhm.
do, and I
Absolutely.
know my kids, right? So I think early on we both experienced the mama and papa bear came out. If Gil was
Right.
criticizing my kids at all, I'd come out and be defensive and like, oh, it would just be bad. And it's like
Mhm.
realized, oh, wait a minute, I have blind spots with my
Mhm.
kids, right? And he can
Mhm.
see things that I don't see, and because I love and trust him, I'm going to take his input. Now, I may not always agree, right?
And we may get a little defensive in the
Yeah,
beginning. I mean, I
yeah,
just think that's natural, but I do think that's the advantage of a step parent is they can see some things, we can be objective because we're
mhm,
not emotionally entangled in these relationships at times. That naturally
yeah,
happens as a biological parent. So those
yes,
are
yeah,
things that with my husband as the stepdad of my 2 girls, I
mhm,
really began to understand that he could see some things that I either didn't want to see, maybe I was choosing to be in denial,
yeah,
and it benefited me to pay attention to what he was saying, and that again is a way that we support our guys, is we
mhm,
listen to them,
mhm,
and we
mhm,
make sure that we're giving them our attention when they're trying to talk to us about stuff.
yeah. And I think to accept their input,
Yeah,
it really gets back to the strength of the marriage.
it does.
Everything comes back to the strength of the marriage, because if I'm in a good place with my husband, I'm going to be more open and trusting of him. But if I'm
Mhm.
really mad at him or there's stuff between us that it's like, what am I doing? How did I get here? I'm not going to really listen wholeheartedly to what he has to say.
Right.
So to be able to separate the whole marriage relationship from the parenting relationship, I
Ugh.
mean, that takes
Mhm.
practice,
Mhm.
doesn't it?
Mhm.
It doesn't happen overnight.
No, absolutely, and there are things that sometimes kind of bleed over into the marriage that happen
Yeah.
in parenting, and so we
Hmm.
do have to be able to kinda separate the 2 and recognize the challenge of doing that. But, Brenda, I know your story, I love the parts of your story, like how y'all started and even with your wedding that you had some challenges that you didn't anticipate. I don't know if you wanna talk about that, just kinda give us a little bit of insight of kinda how your
Yeah.
journey started as a blended family.
Well, I have three boys, and then Gil has three boys and a girl. So we have seven kids between us, and they were all between the ages of 10 and 21 when we got married. And the two older boys were out kind of on their own. So we had five preteens and teens in our home.
Ugh,
As Ron always says, that's the worst time to get remarried. It's like,
right.
oops, oh well, okay. This is what we've got. So fast forwarding to the actual marriage ceremony, everything was good to go. We knew his two older boys weren't going to make it, but like a couple days before, his younger kids decided not to come,
Mm,
and that was very difficult because my guys were there, right? And they
sure,
were
right.
asking, where are the other kids and how
Mm,
do you explain? Because we didn't fully know what was going on, but we had an idea that um, the communication field was not level between the other house and our house. So
okay, right.
it is what it is. You just
Mhm.
gotta sometimes I hate to say it, you just have to suck it up and move forward
I
and be
know. Mhm,
present, right, in
mhm,
the present.
right.
So, but through the years and how a relationship has been built, three of Gil's kids came back and acknowledged, yeah, we really blew it. We wish we had been there. So we always thought, well, wow, when we hit the 20-year mark, let's do a vow renewal.
Oh,
Because, there's been so much healing, and everybody, honestly, we all really love each other. And even
mhm,
though my guys aren't tight with Gil's kids, when
mhm.
they're in each other's presence, they have a great time, which is
Yeah.
really precious. You can still see the two separate family systems,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
there'll always be differences in siblings that are biologically related and siblings that are step siblings. I think
yeah,
it's natural. But
yeah.
Brenda, as you talked about that, another thing that I know is in relating to Gil and his feelings about his kids not coming. I know that you really tried to not take any of that personally yourself,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
you supported Gil by just being there for him and helping him through his own feelings. I love that because
Yeah.
I think that is one of the things that we need to do for our guys.
Mhm.
Sometimes as women, we get so caught up in our own feelings and we can kind of be the drama queens that
Yeah.
we forget that these guys have feelings about stuff too, and their
Yeah.
feelings get hurt and they get wounded, and we have to step out of the way and try to minister to those wounds. And I know you did that
Yeah.
for him.
Yeah. And
And
it's funny, Gayla, because a lot of men don't want to be vulnerable and share how they're really feeling, because in a way they would feel like they're weaker, or they're not
right,
the strong macho, and when we give them a safe place to share how they're really feeling, it's amazing. It's a game changer in any relationship. And
right,
isn't it so easy as women? I hear this more happening, the women are doing it than the guys, is like for the guys to actually take that risk and share something and be vulnerable, and then immediately we just shut them down. Well, you can't do that, or that's a
right,
stupid idea, or I mean, we,
right,
we don't even think about it, right? We just,
right.
and it's like, ladies, you're
Mhm,
cutting your foot off, because
mhm,
that's
mhm.
not what they need. I don't care
No.
how stupid the idea is, unless it's illegal or immoral or something.
We're gonna
um,
throw them in jail, right?
yeah, yeah, you support the, "Oh, tell me more about that. What does that look like? How would,"
Mhm.
but don't cut them off. And honestly, even now, sometimes I have to catch myself,
I know.
because even after all these years, and Gil is so creative and shares so freely, and sometimes I'm a little bit more bullet point girl, which I need to back off. So I'm self-aware, right? It starts with
Right. Right,
self-awareness.
right. Yeah, it's funny how opposites always attract in
Yeah.
marriage, right? I mean, in the beginning, you're attracted to those differences, and then when you marry and you've been with them a long time, those differences really start to annoy you
Yeah.
because they're not the way that we are, and we think they should be, and we think life would be easier if they were. But what I
Yeah.
heard you say, Brenda, is be curious. Be
Ugh,
curious about them and
yes.
ask questions when you hear them say things to you and let them talk about it further. Even if you don't totally agree, you can nod your head and say, wow, that sounds interesting. We
Right,
can come up
right.
with lots of things to say, even if we don't 100% agree or
Yeah.
understand what they're trying to tell us.
Yeah, and I think most people in general just wanna be heard,
Yes.
and they need to
Mhm,
be understood, and there's gotta be some kind of alignment. That does not mean agreement.
mhm, right.
There's a difference.
Mhm. There is a
And
difference.
yeah, and I think
Mhm.
when we give our guys a safe place, and not to, this is a human thing. My pet peeve lately is someone will share, I'll share a story, then someone's got to up it with their own
Yes.
story. And then
Right,
it all becomes about them. And with
right.
our guys, it's like we don't want to do that. We want to have a safe place for them to share,
Mhm,
because
right.
that's what we want them to do, right?
Mhm.
We want
Exactly.
to encourage them to do that. If we keep shutting them down, I if somebody shut me down all the time, I wouldn't want to share,
No,
right?
or I would go share with somebody else.
Yeah.
If you're gonna shut me down as your spouse, then that means I have to find somebody to share with, and we want them sharing with us.
Yeah, and if I can be, as I'm always kind of blunt, that's how affairs usually start. It starts
Absolutely.
as an
Mhm.
emotional
It
connection,
does. Mhm.
not a physical.
Right.
And if you're
Mhm.
not giving that safe place for your husband, it's not too late. Just start doing it.
Right, right. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
And, Brenda, I know that you came into the marriage as a biological mom and a stepmom, just as I
Mhm.
did. And I think when we do that and we come in with our own kids and we feel like we know everything about how to parent our kids, that it becomes more challenging for us to really allow our husband to lead the family. There is a
Mhm.
balance in us parenting our own kids and yet still letting our men be the leader of our home. So I'm curious
Yeah.
how you managed that balance with Gil.
Good question. Um, a lot of this I would probably say to my younger self, right? My younger stepmom
Yes,
years
yes.
is this really a hill to die on? If he's not
Right.
doing it
Mhm.
exactly the way I think it should be done, it's more important, the question is, do you want to be right or have a relationship? And sometimes it's more important to pick your relationship. Once again, if
It is.
it's, life threatening or okay, maybe you need to speak up. But if we're
Right.
so nitpicky about every little thing, that's just going to be continually not affirming him as a dad and a
Right.
man.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do think that is what we wanna do. We do want to be affirming them in their stepdad role, even if
Yeah.
they do things a little differently than we do. And when we do disagree, I think it's important that we talk to them about that disagreement in private. Never have those
Oh, yeah.
conversations in front of the kids. Make sure that those are conversations that we have later because
Yeah.
that, again, is gonna show honor to our men and respect them. So,
Right.
so those are just some of the different challenges that naturally happen in blended families. And
Hmm.
I know that with you and Gil, you established a ministry called Restored and Remarried. You have a
Hmm.
book out on that. You have a
Hmm.
video series that is excellent. And
Thank
I'm
you.
just curious, Brenda, how y'all got started or thinking about that, what your motivation behind that was. And as you did that, I wonder what you learned about Gil in that process.
I learned that writing the book that Gil can do a sentence with 87 words in it.
Oh, no. Yeah, that's hard.
We're authors. We're not writers, but no, he's the writer. No, I just so appreciate his vulnerability, and
Mhm.
he has always been so consistent, even with his kids, to set that level of vulnerability with his kids for them to be vulnerable with us.
Yes, I love
And when
that.
we first started, this whole journey with our ministry, there weren't a lot of people doing it. I mean, we
Mhm.
actually flew from Portland, Oregon down to Arizona to see Ron for the first time
Wow.
within the first year of our marriage because there was nothing out there. And he's been
Right.
so supportive and instrumental in helping our family and, getting the word out. But it's amazing how much need there is out there.
Absolutely.
I
Mhm.
mean, it's ongoing, but
Mhm.
yeah, I think sometimes people don't reach out to get the help or encouragement because of shame. It's a
Mhm. Oh,
big deal.
yes.
Like,
Yes.
I had failed in my first marriage. This one isn't going well. I don't want anybody to know about it. And then
Right.
it's sad because there is help out there.
There is help out there. And
Yeah.
as we think about how to support our guys, I think we have to recognize that they have different needs than what we
Hmm.
have. In fact, Ron did a podcast recently with another man and talked about just the isolation that men feel, the insecurity that men feel. And I think that can be exaggerated even more so in a blended family because
Hmm.
the stepdad role and even the biological dad role as you're juggling this balance between an ex-spouse out here that you're trying to make happy and then you have your new spouse that you want to make happy and you have your kids over here. And so
Hmm.
there are so many things and one of the things that was suggested that I think carries a lot of wisdom was to encourage our guys to have male friendships and to have
Hmm.
relationships with other men. And sometimes I think guys are so busy with work and maybe church involvement and some other things that they just don't think about. I don't have time for male friendships, but the truth is we want to encourage them in having some male friendships. So,
Right. Yeah.
um
Yeah.
wondering if how is Gil done in that area or has that been a challenge?
There's been seasons. There's been
Mhm.
seasons. So, I'll be the first one to say, go play golf. And I'm
Yes.
like, how many wives tell their guys to go play golf?
Yeah.
Right?
Not very many. Uh-huh.
Because
Yeah.
that's just good self care.
It is.
And
Mhm.
I know it's just such an ongoing challenge, I think, through the ages since I've been alive, which has been a long time, of men, I think they value friendships, but maybe not the same way women do. But there's just
Right.
a energy and synergy that happens when guys get together that I love to observe because they're just, you can tell that they need each other, you
Uh-huh,
know?
they do. And it's
Yeah.
different. It's like you said, their conversation is completely different than conversation that women have,
Yeah.
but it is important for us to encourage that. And then also, I
Yeah.
think that we just always wanna encourage the faith aspect, and whether it's as a
Mhm.
couple together that we find a couple devotional that we go through and that we suggest, "Hey, do we wanna try reading this every day?" And just talking about it. Anything that is not threatening, that
Yeah.
would entice our guy to be willing to step into a space, even if it is a little uncomfortable. I think we always want to be encouraging the faith journey,
Yeah.
especially in blended families. We cannot do this on our own
Mm-mm.
and we will fail.
Yeah.
And it's just the reality. There's too
Yeah.
much complexity. There's too many difficulties that we don't know what to do with. And I think that
Yeah.
as we can, when we say, I don't know what to do, but I trust God that He'll tell me what to do, I think that that's just a reminder sometimes that we can
Yeah.
give our guys even.
Well, and even a simple thing, what I've heard through the years is we've worked with, Gil's a counselor, I'm a coach, and we work with couples all over the country. We have for years, and this faith component. I'm glad you brought it up, Gayla, because um, a lot of times women moms sometimes
Mhm.
would have time to do their mops group or daily bible study or
Right.
something,
Mhm.
and guys don't always, it doesn't come as easy, they're
Right.
not being plugged in as easily.
Mhm.
It's easier for us
Mhm.
to be plugged in, so that sometimes the guys feel intimidated because they feel like, well, here my wife knows all this bible knowledge and
Right.
I don't even want to pray because I'm not going to do it right. And then what
Mhm.
makes it worse is when
Mhm.
we women say, well, you didn't pray right. I mean,
Ah, yes, right. Yeah.
right? I mean,
Mhm.
since the very beginning, our first date, we've always ended our time together in prayer. And
Oh,
it's very sweet. Gil leads off, or sometimes he's tired. We do it at night, and
yes.
and then I'll just do it. And then we
Mhm.
always, whenever we do our prayer, requests and stuff, we always end it by saying, "And you," which is an open invitation. Like, and do you have anything to add?
Oh,
Isn't that cool?
wow.
And
Yeah.
sometimes it's like, no, we're tired. Amen. Or, Lord, it's been a long day. We're tired. Thank you for your blessing. We're out of here.
Right,
It doesn't have
absolutely.
to be our thee, thou, King James
Mhm.
version of prayer. It's just,
Right,
hey, Lord, thank you for watching over us, keeping us safe. Pray for our kids. Very
right.
conversational. And, the most bonding thing we can do as a couple, more than sex, is to pray.
Yes, it is. And it's also can be one of the most intimidating things to do. And
Yeah.
so I think that we just continue to encourage it when it doesn't feel comfortable for us. But know that that's normal. And
Yeah.
as you do it, it does get more comfortable. I think that's one of the things
Yeah.
that we have learned definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
And that's where it's important that everybody has a voice in the relationship. And then
Yes.
it gets down to, are you in a safe place to share? A lot of
Mhm.
times, I'll call the women out. We don't give our guys a safe place to share.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's like, everything you're doing is wrong. It's like, well,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
always
And
try to
that's
look at our guys as who has God made them to be, this strong warrior who's going to lead us, right? You may not see that in the flesh right now, but that is how God wired them to be. So we need to call them out in that. Now, if they're being
exactly.
stupid, then they need to be called out on that too.
Yeah, exactly.
And we
You
do
know,
too. We do
I know.
too.
Oh, we do, and when we can
Yeah.
be sometimes too, right? I mean, I'll
Yeah.
be the first to say that. So, there are some guys on the live stream, which I'm so excited to see
Uh,
that, and there's been a comment thrown up that said, when leadership in a marriage is challenged, that men will become passive.
Mhm.
And I think there's a lot of truth in that. I think we can all, as women, learn from that. And it's exactly what you said, Brenda, that we can shut them down by our actions or
Mhm.
even inaction.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's not what we say, it's what we don't say.
Mhm.
And so we need to be intentional in affirming them and just encouraging them in their role. And then
Yeah.
somebody also said, quickly assess if it's life or death. Okay, that's exactly what you said. Think the intentions from your spouse are good. I agree with
Yes.
that.
Mhm.
Sometimes we question their heart as a stepdad, and we don't just assume that their motives are good. And I think that
Right.
we want to trust their heart, even if they behave differently, even if their tone isn't exactly where we want it all the time. They're a guy. They talk
Yeah.
differently than we do. They behave differently than we do, but we
Yeah.
can trust their heart.
Yeah. Yeah. And to keep those lines of communication open, that when they do have input, and maybe they haven't before, to affirm them in that, because you want them to do that
Right.
more, right? Because you're a team.
Yes.
You need
Mhm.
their input. You want their
Yeah.
input.
Mhm. Mhm.
And but sometimes it gets into our own personal ways of thinking and believing, distortions in who we are, right?
Right. Yeah.
That play into the relationship.
Yeah, we always have to consider the experiences that we've walked through, what we have
Yeah.
back here, the baggage that we have all come into marriage with, and how is that impacting our behavior and our thoughts also. And so
Yeah.
sometimes just to recognize that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
okay, then I had some ladies want tips to get men to attend a blended family event or a study. Oh, that's a good one.
Good luck with that. No.
No,
No.
yeah, let's see. You can answer that first,
You
Brenda.
well, I say you can bribe them, we'll have a nice weekend, romantic weekend away if you do this for me. No, that's we don't wanna
Actually,
manipulate.
you can encourage that, there's nothing wrong with that.
Um,
One of the things I would say is, to make sure they understand the benefit of it, that
yeah.
it is not where somebody's gonna come and they're gonna be criticized for what they're doing wrong or they're gonna feel put down. That is not what blended
Mm-mm.
family events are about, at least the ones that we do through Family Life. I know certainly what you and Gil do with Restored and Remarried, and I would say check out the event you're going to. Make sure that you do know it is a good positive event, but to
Mhm.
make sure that the guys know they're going to be encouraged. They're
Yeah,
not going to be criticized or it be a difficult situation. Now, it might open up communication that can be uncomfortable, but it's probably communication that needs to happen, even
yeah,
if it is
yeah.
a little bit uncomfortable.
And I would also add to that, they may have an experience that they can share with other people in the small group wherever they go
Yes.
that will encourage somebody else,
Yes,
right?
yeah. Yes, and that's a good point, and I
Yeah,
think that, again, is gonna help our guys, be validated in the experiences that they are walking through can benefit others.
yeah,
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 so another question that's come in is any advice on getting hubby to see that hanging out with other faithful men is a good thing? So, in other words, trying to help our guys understand that hanging out with other believers is what I hear them saying. For
yeah,
me, I think I would again make sure that they see the encouragement that they're going to get from that. Because if you're hanging out with
yeah,
other men who are trying to do the right thing and living a Christ-centered life, they're going to want to encourage their friends, their male
right.
friendships.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. No, I totally agree, because and sometimes that may just start in a small group with just meeting with one other couple in a blended family that you've met in the community or through the church. Hey, let's just go out for lunch, and just it starts small that way. It's that
exactly
one
right.
little connection. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think the 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 good thing about that is what will bond the guys and all of
Yeah,
us is the
yeah,
pain we have been through,
uh-huh,
right?
right.
Because yeah, there's two doors, two ways to come into, or there's more than that, but into a blended family is through pain, through divorce, or
Mhm.
passing of a
Through the death of
spouse.
right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
you could be single coming in also, but it's
You
never
can.
an easy way to get into this step family adventure, right?
No, it's not there's been some kind of a pain, there's been some kind of
Yeah.
an ending of a relationship, so there's been loss, and so there's been baggage,
Yeah.
and so we
Yes.
all come in with these previous experiences that are affecting us, and the
Yeah.
other thing I would say is men's relationships, they want to go do stuff together, so it may not be that you encourage them to go have coffee with another man, maybe it's
Yeah.
you do encourage, "Hey, so and so is a big golfer. You could try, if they like to golf or whatever it is that they have in
Yeah.
common with another man." Then I think that we just encourage common interests, and then
Mhm.
know that it's okay if we're not our husband's best friend. They do need to
Yeah.
have some other friends,
Yeah.
who speak
Yeah.
into them in
Agree.
different ways and who they can talk to about things that men talk about, you know.
Mhm.
That's gonna be different than us.
Yes, definitely.
And Brenda, I also wanna mention Unsung Heroes, which is a
Mhm.
series that Gil has put together specifically for men, for stepdads, and he talks about s the courageous role that a stepdad is and how that
Mhm.
can really help our men.
Yeah, I just am so proud of how he put this together. So we didn't film this in a studio with a green screen. We live in the Pacific Northwest. And so we went on location and shot all these sessions, these little
Mm,
vignettes. And what
right.
I love about it, Gail, is that he talks to the guys like a Saturday morning talk. I mean, no
Yeah.
video is more than 15 minutes. And he is saying stuff to the guys that I know we as wives have either been trying to say to our guys or have been afraid to say to our guys.
Right.
And he just says it guy to guy, and he does a great job. And I really think that the ladies should watch it too,
Uh-huh. I
because
agree. I've
then
watched it. Yeah.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
great. Yeah. So, because then you understand, oh, that's why he's probably feeling like that. Or I didn't even think that he would see it this way. Because
Right.
sometimes maybe our guys don't know how to explain it.
Mhm.
But the different sessions are, you're not my dad. So as stepdads, how do you handle that conversation with your
Mhm.
stepkid? What's a healthy
Right.
way to do it?
Right.
Um, reverse betrayal. Gil really had to deal with that he felt like he was bonding with my kids because he was
Mhm.
seeing them more than with his kids. So then he
Right.
felt like he was betraying his kids. So that's a
Yes.
real thing.
It is a real thing. My husband
Yeah.
has had some struggles with that. He actually had more time with my girls than he did
Yeah.
with his own kids, and that's
Yeah.
actually can be kind of a common dynamic for
Yeah.
someone who's a dad and a stepdad because the mom typically has the kids more,
More.
and,
Yeah.
that's a very real thing for men that we need to be sure if they talk about
Yeah.
that we acknowledge those feelings and that we really try to understand them and listen to them. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
glad
Because
to hear. So he's got a session on that. Mhm.
yeah, and the beauty of that is that when guys hear this, I think more than anything is they realize they're not alone. And like you
Right.
said, it is normal part of the step family that you don't really see it coming. It's like, oh, that would
Ugh,
be a thing. Yeah, it can be
yeah.
a thing.
Right, right, and so then
Yeah.
you feel guilty because you don't have as much time with your own kids. Yeah, that is a
Yeah.
very real thing. Mhm.
Another thing that's very common is the guys feel like they're between a rock and a hard place, like you had mentioned earlier, between their
Mhm.
wife and their
Mhm.
kids. It's like,
Yes,
what do I do? It's a lose lose situation, right?
it feels like it. Mm,
Yeah,
yeah.
so Gil talks a lot about that. Once again, in a way that I think women could really get a lot out of understanding their guys.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so those that are interested in knowing more about that, there will be information about that. There'll be a link that, in fact, I think it was
mhm,
already put up, and there'll be more information in the chat. There it is,
mhm,
where you can get information on that. So,
yeah,
as we wrap up, I just wanna continue to say that thank you for joining us. I mean,
mhm,
women and men, we just want to say we're thankful for you and the way that you are wanting to invest in your blended family. Excuse me. And one of the ways that you do that is continue to educate yourself and understand the journey that others are walking through and
mhm,
learning from others. And so I'm just so thankful for those who are joining us for these Women in Blended Families live stream. And we are going to have another one next month. So we're doing these every month now, the second Tuesday of the month. And we're going to talk about co parenting next month. The summer, especially, co-parenting can be a difficult dynamic. I mean, sometimes we see our former spouse more often during the summer, and so we want to be sure that we address that topic next month. And so we're going to be doing that. So, Brenda, thank you for joining me. You have a wealth of information to share with blended
Thank
families.
you. Thank you. It's
Yeah,
been great to be here. I love to talk with you, Gayla, and encourage all the stepmoms and stepdads out there because it can be a hard place to be, but there can be joy in the journey. I mean, after 20 years now, it's like and we had our rough spots. It was so worth it working
right.
through it.
Right. And
Yeah.
and the same, and I think we kinda end by saying, yes, even if you're not in the place where you want to be today, just
Mhm.
keep trying because God is in the relationship building business. He
Yeah.
redeems relationships all the time. Brenda and I have both seen it in our step families, and I'm thankful for that, and we just want to encourage you to keep pressing on, ladies, because to those who are faithful, God shows himself faithful. See you next time.